Picture this, a city where the sun glints off marble columns, where the air hums with the chatter of a dozen languages, and where ships from every corner of the known world dock to unload not just spices or silk, but ideas. This is Alexandria, 300 years before Christ, a place that dared to dream bigger than any before it. A city that didn't just want to conquer lands but to capture the very essence of human thought. At its heart stood a marvel unlike any other, the Library of Alexandria. Not just a building, but a bold, almost impossible vision to hold every scroll, every fragment of knowledge the world had ever produced. How did this dream come to be? Why did a single city in the sands of Egypt become the beacon of human wisdom? Let's step back in time and uncover the story. A story so grand it feels like myth, yet so real it changed history forever. If you're ready to dive into this epic journey, make sure you're subscribed to The Unveiled Past, because we're about to unravel a mystery that still echoes through the ages. Let's set the scene. It's the 3rd century before Christ, and the world is a fractured mosaic of empires, city-states, and wandering philosophers. Greece is past its golden age, but its ideas still burn bright. Persia's vast empire looms in the east, while Rome is just a scrappy upstart on the Italian peninsula. Into this world steps Alexander the Great, a man whose ambition didn't just redraw maps but reshaped the very flow of human thought. When he died in 323 before Christ, his empire splintered, but his vision didn't. One of his generals, Ptolemy, took the reins of Egypt and saw something others didn't, a chance to build not just a kingdom, but a capital of the mind. Alexandria, named for the conqueror himself, was his canvas, and the library, that was his masterpiece. Imagine standing on the shores of Alexandria, the Mediterranean stretching out before you, its waves whispering secrets from distant lands. The city is a marvel, a melting pot where Greek philosophers rub shoulders with Egyptian priests, where Persian traders haggle with Jewish scholars, and where the curious from every corner of the world converge. The streets pulse with life, merchants shouting, oxen pulling carts, the scent of salt and incense heavy in the air. But it's the library that draws the eye, a sprawling complex of white stone, its halls lined with shelves that stretch into the shadows, each one groaning under the weight of scrolls. This wasn't just a library, it was a temple to human curiosity, a place where the impossible seemed within reach. The Ptolemies, starting with Ptolemy I, didn't just want to collect books, they wanted everything. Every poem, every mathematical proof, every story of gods and heroes, every map of the stars. If it was written, they wanted it. But why? Why pour so much wealth, so much effort, into a dream that sounds almost mad? To understand, you have to see the world through Ptolemy's eyes. Egypt was rich, yes, but it was also precarious, surrounded by rivals hungry for power. The Ptolemies needed more than gold or armies, they needed prestige, a way to prove their kingdom was the true heir to Alexander's legacy. What better way than to make Alexandria the center of the world's knowledge? The library wasn't just a collection of scrolls, it was a statement. It said, "Here, in this city, we hold the keys to the past, the present, and the future." It was a magnet for the greatest minds, a beacon that drew scholars like moths to a flame. And as we'll see, those scholars didn't just preserve knowledge, they created it. Let's talk about the scale of this ambition. Estimates vary, but at its peak, the library may have held 500,000 scrolls. 500,000. Think about that for a moment. In a world where every book was copied by hand, where a single scroll could take weeks to produce, this was a staggering feat. These weren't just any scrolls either. They held the works of Homer, the plays of Sophocles, the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle. They contained star charts from Babylon, medical texts from India, and myths from lands so distant no one in Alexandria could point to them on a map. The library was a mirror of the world, reflecting every culture, every idea, every dream. But it wasn't just about collecting. It was about creating a place where those ideas could collide, spark, and ignite. Now imagine you're one of the scholars invited to this place. You walk through the library's halls, the air cool and heavy with the smell of papyrus and ink. Around you, others are at work, some translating texts from Persian or Hebrew into Greek, others debating the shape of the earth or the distance to the stars. The Ptolemies didn't just fund the library, they funded a revolution of the mind. They paid scholars to live there, to think, to argue, to dream. This was no dusty archive, it was a living, breathing hub of discovery. And it wasn't just for the elite. The library's doors were open to anyone with a curious mind, a radical idea in a world where knowledge was often hoarded like gold. But there's a shadow in this story, an irony that hangs over Alexandria like a storm cloud. For all its grandeur, the library was born in a city of contradictions. Alexandria was a crossroads, yes, but also a battleground, culturally, politically, and sometimes literally. The Ptolemies ruled as Greek kings over an Egyptian people, and that tension simmered beneath the surface. The library, for all its universal ideals, was also a tool of power, a way to cement Ptolemaic dominance, and as we'll discover, that ambition came at a cost. The same city that birthed the greatest repository of knowledge would also witness its unraveling. Let's pause for a moment and consider what this means. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a place, it was a dream that said humanity could rise above its divisions, that we could gather our collective wisdom and use it to understand the universe. But dreams, as we know, are fragile. The library's story is one of triumph, but also of tragedy. Its rise was meteoric, but its fall would be catastrophic. How did it happen? What forces, human, political, or otherwise, brought down this beacon of knowledge? And what was lost when the flames came? These are the questions we'll explore as we journey deeper into this tale. Before we move on, let's take one last look at Alexandria in its prime. Picture the library at dawn, the first light of the sun creeping over the horizon, illuminating the scrolls that hold the secrets of 1,000 cultures. This was a place where the impossible felt possible, where the boundaries of human thought were pushed to their limits. But as we'll see in the next chapter, the library wasn't just a building, it was a stage for some of the greatest minds in history. Their discoveries, their arguments, their dreams would shape the world in ways we still feel today. So, are you ready to meet them? To walk in their footsteps and uncover the ideas that changed everything? Imagine walking through the halls of the Library of Alexandria, the air thick with the scent of papyrus and the murmur of voices debating ideas that would echo for millennia. You're surrounded by minds so brilliant they seem almost otherworldly, men and women who didn't just study the world but reshaped how we understand it. These were the scholars of Alexandria, the architects of knowledge, whose discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy laid the foundations for the modern world. But who were they? How did a single place draw together such giants? And what made their work so revolutionary that we're still talking about it 2,000 years later? Let's step into their world and uncover the stories of the minds that turned the library into a beacon of human genius. Picture Alexandria in the 3rd century before Christ, a city buzzing with ambition. The library isn't just a repository of scrolls, it's a crucible where ideas are forged. The Ptolemies, the Greek kings ruling Egypt, knew that knowledge was power, and they spared no expense to attract the brightest minds. They offered stipends, housing, even free meals, turning the library into a magnet for scholars from across the Mediterranean and beyond. It was a place where a Greek mathematician might argue with a Persian astronomer, where an Egyptian priest could debate a Jewish philosopher. This wasn't just a library, it was a collision of worlds, a place where human curiosity burned brighter than the Egyptian sun. Let's meet one of the first giants, Euclid, the father of geometry. If you've ever struggled through a math class, you've walked in his shadow. His work, The Elements, wasn't just a book, it was a monument. 13 volumes meticulously laying out the principles of geometry, from the simplest line to the most complex proofs. Imagine sitting in the library's shaded courtyard as Euclid scratches diagrams in the dust, explaining why the angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. His ideas were so clear, so universal, that they became the bedrock of mathematics for centuries. But here's the kicker. Euclid didn't just teach us shapes, he taught us how to think logically, step by step, building truth from first principles. That's the kind of mind the library nurtured. Now let's turn to Eratosthenes, a man who measured the earth itself. Picture this. It's around 240 before Christ, and Eratosthenes hears a curious rumor. In the city of Cyane, far to the south, the sun casts no shadow at noon on the summer solstice. Most would shrug and move on, but not Eratosthenes. He measures the angle of a shadow in Alexandria, does some calculations, and brace yourself, figures out the Earth's circumference with an accuracy that stuns modern scientists. We're talking a margin of error of less than 2%, using nothing but a stick, a shadow, and his own brilliance. This wasn't just a number, it was proof that the Earth was a sphere, a radical idea in a world where many still thought it was flat. Eratosthenes didn't stop there. He mapped the known world, calculated the distance to the sun, and even invented a system for finding prime numbers. All this from a man who called himself a second-rater, too humble to see his own genius. Then there's Archimedes, the man who made the impossible seem routine. Though he spent most of his life in Syracuse, his time in Alexandria shaped him. Legend has it he studied in the library's halls, soaking up its knowledge before returning home to invent. You've heard the story, Eureka, he shouted, leaping from his bath when he cracked the problem of measuring volume through water displacement. But Archimedes was more than a bathtub anecdote. He calculated the value of pi, designed machines that could lift entire ships, and wrote treatises on physics that were centuries ahead of their time. His work, preserved in the library's scrolls, wasn't just brilliant, it was revolutionary, giving engineers and scientists tools that would shape the future. But the library wasn't just for men of numbers. Enter Hypatia, one of the few women whose name survives from this era. In the 4th century after Christ, long after the library's peak, she carried its torch. A philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer, Hypatia taught in Alexandria's intellectual circles, her lectures drawing crowds of students. She edited texts, refined astronomical models, and debated with the sharpest minds of her time. Imagine her standing before a room of eager learners, explaining the orbits of the planets or the geometry of the stars, her voice cutting through the noise of a city in decline. Her story is a reminder that the library's spirit wasn't just in its scrolls, but in the people who kept its ideas alive, even as the world around them crumbled. What made these scholars so extraordinary? It wasn't just their brilliance, it was the library itself. This was a place where ideas weren't just stored, they were challenged, debated, refined. The Ptolemies created a system where scholars could dedicate their lives to thinking, free from the grind of daily survival. They didn't just collect scrolls, they collected minds. And those minds didn't work in isolation. They argued, they collaborated, they built on each other's work. Euclid's geometry helped Eratosthenes measure the earth. Archimedes' physics inspired engineers for centuries. Hypatia's teachings kept the flame of inquiry burning, even as the library faced its twilight. This was a community of genius, and the library was its heart. But there's an irony here, isn't there? For all their brilliance, these scholars were part of a fragile dream. The library's wealth of knowledge made it a target. Its very existence a provocation to those who feared ideas or envied Alexandria's prestige. The same city that fostered these giants would soon face turmoil that threatened their legacy. How did the library's scholars navigate the growing tensions around them? What happened when the world outside those marble walls began to fracture? These are the questions that pull us forward into the heart of Alexandria's story. Let's linger for a moment on what these scholars left behind. Their work wasn't just ink on papyrus, it was a map for humanity's future. Euclid's logic still underpins mathematics. Eratosthenes' measurements proved the world was bigger than anyone imagined. Archimedes' inventions showed what human ingenuity could achieve. And Hypatia's courage reminded us that ideas are worth fighting for, even in the darkest times. But as we'll see in the next chapter, the library wasn't just about the scholars, it was about the scrolls themselves, the stories they held, and the lengths to which Alexandria went to gather them. What secrets did those scrolls contain? And what drove the Ptolemies to chase them with such relentless ambition? Get ready, because the story is about to take us deeper into the heart of this ancient mystery. Imagine you're standing in the heart of Alexandria, the sun blazing overhead, the air alive with the clamor of a city that never sleeps. You're not just anywhere, you're inside the Library of Alexandria, where the walls seem to hum with the weight of secrets. Shelves tower above you, stuffed with scrolls that hold the wisdom of empires, the dreams of poets, and the calculations of stargazers. But how did all this knowledge end up here? What drove the rulers of this city to chase every scrap of writing with an obsession that borders on madness? And what hidden rivalries, what shadowy deals fueled this quest for the world's ideas? This is the story of the library's inner workings, a tale of ambition, cunning, and a hunger for knowledge so fierce it shaped history. Let's dive into the city of scrolls and uncover the secrets that made it legendary. Picture Alexandria in its prime, around 250 before Christ. The Ptolemies, the Greek dynasty ruling Egypt, aren't content with gold or armies. They want something more enduring, the power of ideas. The library isn't just a building, it's a machine, a relentless engine designed to gather every written word in the known world. The numbers are staggering. Some say the library held 400,000 scrolls, others claim 700,000. Each one was hand-copied, a labor of love and patience, crafted by scribes who spent weeks or months on a single text. These weren't just books, they were treasures, carrying the stories of Greece, the laws of Babylon, the hymns of Egypt, even whispers from distant India. To hold a scroll was to hold a piece of humanity's soul. But how did they do it? How did a single city amass a collection so vast it defies imagination? The answer lies in the Ptolemies' audacity. They didn't just wait for knowledge to come to them, they hunted it. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor faced a peculiar demand. Any scrolls on board were seized, taken to the library, and copied. The originals often stayed, while the owners got the copies, sometimes without a choice. Imagine you're a merchant from Athens, carrying a rare copy of a play by Aeschylus. You dock in Alexandria, and before you know it, your precious scroll is whisked away to the library's halls. It's bold, almost ruthless, but it worked. The Ptolemies turned Alexandria into a black hole for knowledge. pulling in texts from every corner of the world. Let's zoom in on the library itself. You're walking through its colonnades, past rooms where scribes bend over tables, their fingers stained with ink. The air smells of papyrus and wax, and the soft scratch of reed pens fills the silence. These scribes aren't just copying, they're translating, editing, preserving. Texts arrive in a dozen languages: Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, even early forms of Sanskrit. The library's scholars, men like Callimachus, the poet-librarian, organize this chaos. Callimachus creates the Pinaches, a catalogue of the library's holdings, dividing them by subject, author, and genre. It's the world's first library index, a map of human thought. Without it, the library would be a labyrinth. With it, it's a universe you can navigate. But there's a darker side to this quest. The Podlemeries' hunger for scrolls sparked rivalries that burned as fiercely as any battlefield. Across the Mediterranean, another library was rising in Pergamon, a city in modern-day Turkey. The rulers of Pergamon wanted their own slice of glory, and they too began collecting scrolls. The competition turned cutthroat. The Podlemeries banned the export of papyrus, Egypt's signature writing material, hoping to starve Pergamon's library. Pergamon fought back, developing parchment made from animal skins to keep their scribes working. It's a strange irony, isn't it? The pursuit of knowledge, something so noble, led to petty feuds and economic warfare. Yet this rivalry drove innovation, giving the world a new way to record its ideas. Now, let's talk about the lengths the Ptolemies went to for certain texts. Ever heard of the Septuagint? It's the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, a monumental work born in the library's halls. Legend has it that Ptolemy II invited 70 Jewish scholars to Alexandria, housing them on an island, to translate their sacred texts. They worked for years, creating a bridge between Jewish and Greek thought that would shape religions for centuries. But the story's not all rosy. Some say the scholars were coerced, their work less a collaboration than a demand from a king who wanted their scriptures for his collection. True or not, it shows the Ptolemies' relentless drive. They didn't just want knowledge, they wanted to own it. What's even more fascinating is how the library became a hub for ideas that challenged the world. Scholars didn't just preserve texts, they questioned them. Imagine a room where a Greek astronomer debates with a Persian mathematician over the shape of the cosmos. These debates weren't just academic, they were dangerous. Ideas about the Earth's size or the star's motion could upset priests, kings, or entire belief systems. Yet the library was a safe haven, a place where bold thoughts could take root. It's no wonder the scrolls themselves became treasures worth fighting for. But here's the paradox. For all its openness to ideas, the library was a tool of power. The Ptolemies used it to legitimize their rule, to say, "We are the heirs of Alexander, the guardians of civilization." Every scroll they collected was a trophy, a symbol of their dominance over not just Egypt but the world's intellect. Yet this ambition sowed the seeds of trouble. Alexandria was a city of tensions: Greek rulers over Egyptian locals, scholars versus priests, ideas versus tradition. The library's very existence made it a lightning rod for envy and conflict. Let's pause and reflect. The Library of Alexandria was a paradox, a place of universal knowledge built on the back of imperial ambition. Its scrolls held the dreams of countless cultures, but they also carried the weight of rivalries, coercion, and control. What secrets did those scrolls hold? What stories, what discoveries filled those endless shelves? And what happened when the world outside began to turn against this beacon of wisdom? As we'll see in the next chapter, the library's glory was fragile, and the fires of fate were closer than anyone could have imagined. Are you ready to uncover what came next? Imagine the Library of Alexandria at its zenith, its shelves brimming with the wisdom of ages, its halls alive with the hum of scholars and scribes. Now picture the unthinkable: flames licking at those shelves, smoke curling through the marble corridors, the scent of burning papyrus choking the air. The library, the greatest monument to human thought, faces its darkest hour. But how did it happen? Was it a single cataclysmic blaze that erased centuries of knowledge, or a slow, relentless decline? And who or what was to blame? This is the story of the library's fall, a tale of chaos, ambition, and conflicting truths that still haunt us. Let's step into the flames and uncover what really happened to the beacon of Alexandria. It's the year 48 before Christ, and Alexandria is a powder keg. The city, once a shining crossroads of cultures, is now caught in a brutal power struggle. Julius Caesar, Rome's rising star, has landed in Egypt, chasing his rival Pompey. He's welcomed by the young Ptolemy XIII, but the real power lies with Cleopatra, the cunning queen who knows how to play empires against each other. The library stands proud, its scrolls a silent witness to the city's turmoil. But then, disaster strikes. Caesar, cornered by Ptolemy's forces, orders his men to set fire to the Alexandrian fleet in the harbor. The flames leap from ship to ship, a wall of fire that lights up the night. But the wind shifts, and the blaze spreads to the shore. Warehouses, docks, and some say the library itself are engulfed. Imagine the horror, scribes scrambling to save scrolls, scholars watching helplessly as flames devour their life's work. The air is thick with ash, the city's heart breaking as its greatest treasure burns. But here's the question that's haunted historians for centuries. Did the library really burn that day? The accounts are murky, like smoke obscuring truth. The ancient historian Plutarch says the fire reached the library, destroying part of its collection. Others, like Seneca, claim 40,000 scrolls were lost, a staggering number, but only a fraction of the library's holdings. Yet some sources insist the library survived, its core intact. Picture the confusion in Alexandria, rumors swirling, scholars mourning, while the Ptolemies scramble to save face. Caesar himself, ever the politician, downplays the damage. After all, he's not just fighting for Egypt, he's fighting for his legacy. A man who burns the world's greatest library doesn't get to call himself a hero. Let's pause and consider the irony. The library was built to preserve knowledge, to defy time itself, yet here it is, caught in the crossfire of human ambition. Caesar's fire, intentional or not, wasn't the only threat. Alexandria was a city of tensions, Greek rulers versus Egyptian locals, Roman ambition versus Ptolemaic pride. The library, for all its universal ideals, was a symbol of power, and power attracts enemies. As Rome's shadow grew, Alexandria's independence waned. The Ptolemies, once the library's proud patrons, were now puppets in a Roman game. The fire of 48 before Christ may have been the first blow, but it wasn't the last. Fast forward to the 3rd century after Christ. The library, if it survived Caesar's blaze, faces new dangers. Alexandria is no longer the unchallenged capital of knowledge. The Roman Empire is fracturing, torn by civil wars and economic collapse. The city becomes a battleground again and again. In the year 272, the Emperor Aurelian crushes a rebellion in Alexandria, and the fighting devastates parts of the city. Some say the library's annex, the Serapeum, a temple that housed many of its scrolls, was damaged. Imagine the scene, soldiers clashing in the streets, the air ringing with the clash of swords, while the library's treasures lie vulnerable. Scrolls are scattered, trampled, or looted. Knowledge once revered becomes collateral damage in a world that values power over wisdom. Then comes the year 391, a turning point shrouded in controversy. The Roman Empire is now Christian, and the Emperor Theodosius bans pagan worship. The Serapeum, still a hub for the library's collection, is a pagan stronghold. Christian zealots, led by the bishop Theophilus, storm the temple. They tear down statues, smash altars, and some accounts claim burn whatever scrolls remain. Picture the chaos. A mob chanting, flames rising, the last remnants of the library's glory reduced to ash. But here's the twist, not all sources agree. Some say the Serapeum's library was already diminished, its scrolls moved or lost long before. Others argue the destruction was exaggerated by later writers to paint Christians as blown out of proportion. What's the truth? We may never know, but the story of a mob destroying the world's knowledge is too powerful to ignore. It's a symbol of a world turning its back on the library's dream. Let's linger on that image for a moment. The library, once a beacon of light, now a casualty of a changing world. Was it Caesar's fire, Aurelian's wars, or Theophilus' zeal that dealt the fatal blow? Or was it something slower, more insidious? A decline driven by neglect, budget cuts, and a city too busy fighting to care for its scrolls. The truth is, no single event destroyed the library. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow bleed of resources, relevance, and will. By the 5th century, the library as it was, a thriving hub of scholars and scribes, was gone. Its halls fell silent, its shelves empty. But here's the paradox that keeps us awake at night. The library's destruction wasn't just a loss, it was a wound that changed history. The scrolls that burned or vanished held knowledge we can only guess at, philosophies that could have reshaped thought, scientific theories that might have accelerated progress by centuries. The library's fall left a void, a gap in humanity's story that we're still trying to fill. What was lost in those flames? What secrets did the ashes carry away? As we'll see in the next chapter, the scale of that loss is almost too vast to comprehend. But the story doesn't end here. The library's echoes linger, and the quest for its lost treasures is far from over. Picture yourself standing amid the ruins of Alexandria, the once mighty library, now a shadow of its former glory. The shelves are empty, the air heavy with the ghosts of scrolls that held the secrets of 1,000 civilizations. The flames, the wars, the neglect, they've all taken their toll. But what exactly was lost? What treasures vanished when the library fell? Were they poems that could stir the soul, scientific truths centuries ahead of their time, or histories of peoples long forgotten? This is the story of the knowledge that slipped through humanity's fingers, a loss so profound it still haunts us. Let's walk through the ashes and imagine what might have been, and what it means for the world we live in today. Let's start with the scale of the tragedy. At its peak, the Library of Alexandria held, by some estimates, 500,000 scrolls. Each one was a world unto itself, handwritten, irreplaceable, a fragile thread connecting us to the past. These weren't just books, they were the collected dreams, discoveries, and stories of humanity. The works of Homer, the plays of Sophocles, the philosophies of Aristotle, these were the lucky ones, the ones that survived, copied elsewhere before the end came. But for every scroll that made it out, countless others didn't. Imagine entire libraries of thought gone, histories of empires we'll never know, mathematical proofs that could have rewritten science, medical texts that might have saved lives centuries before modern medicine. The loss isn't just numbers, it's a wound in our understanding of who we are. Let's dive into what those scrolls might have held. The library was a mirror of the ancient world, reflecting every culture it touched. There were Greek tragedies, yes, but also Egyptian myths, Babylonian star charts, and Persian chronicles. Ever heard of Berossus? He was a Babylonian priest who, in the 3rd century before Christ, wrote a history of his people stretching back thousands of years. His work was in the library, but only fragments survive today, quoted by later writers. Imagine what his full text could tell us: stories of kings, gods, and cities lost to time. Or consider Aristarchus of Samos, an astronomer who proposed, 200 years before Christ, that the Earth orbited the Sun. His ideas were revolutionary, but his full works, lost. If they'd survived, the heliocentric model might have taken root centuries before Copernicus, reshaping science and history itself. Then there's the literature. Oh, the literature. The Greeks alone produced hundreds of playwrights, poets, and historians, but we have only a fraction of their work. Sophocles wrote over 120 plays. We have 7. Aeschylus penned 90. We know 10. The library held their complete works, now reduced to ashes or scattered scraps. Imagine standing in Alexandria, unrolling a scroll to read a lost tragedy, a story of love, betrayal, or heroism that could rival Shakespeare. Or picture the histories of lost civilizations, like the Etruscans or the Harappans, whose secrets were recorded in scrolls that no longer exist. These weren't just stories, they were windows into worlds we'll never fully see. But it's not just the big names that haunt us. The library was a treasure trove of the obscure, the forgotten, the voices that never made it into the canon. Think of the women poets, like Sappho, whose surviving fragments are breathtaking but represent only a sliver of her work. Or the countless anonymous scribes who recorded folk tales, recipes, even love letters from distant lands. The library didn't just collect the works of the elite, it gathered the whispers of ordinary people, their dreams and fears etched in ink. When those scrolls burned, we lost not just knowledge but humanity itself, the messy, beautiful, contradictory story of who we were. Let's linger on the science for a moment. The library was a hub for ideas that pushed the boundaries of what humans thought possible. Scholars like Ctesibius, who invented water clocks and hydraulic machines, worked in Alexandria. Their treatises, filled with diagrams and experiments, were likely stored in the library. Imagine a text describing a steam-powered device, like the Aeolipile of Hero of Alexandria. But centuries earlier, could the Industrial Revolution have started 1,000 years sooner? Or consider the medical texts, dissections, herbal remedies, surgical techniques from India, Egypt, and Greece. The library held knowledge that could have saved countless lives, but when it fell, that wisdom vanished, leaving medicine to grope in the dark for centuries. Here's the paradox that twists the knife. We don't even know the full extent of what we lost. The library's catalogue, the Pinaques of Callimachus, was itself a casualty. This wasn't just a list, it was a map of human thought, a guide to every scroll in those endless halls. Without it, we're left guessing, piecing together fragments from later writers who quoted the originals. It's like trying to rebuild a shattered mosaic with half the pieces missing. Every lost scroll is a question mark, a what-if that echoes through history. What if we'd had Aristarchus's full theory? What if we'd saved Berossus's history? What if a single scroll had sparked a revolution in thought centuries before its time? But the loss wasn't just intellectual, it was emotional. Imagine being a scholar in Alexandria after the fires, sifting through the wreckage, finding only charred scraps where masterpieces once stood. The despair must have been crushing. Yet even in that despair, there's a flicker of resilience. Some scrolls were copied, sent to other libraries in Pergamon or Antioch. Some knowledge survived in the minds of scholars who fled the city, carrying ideas to distant lands. But the scale of the loss is staggering. It's not just that we lost books, we lost possibilities. The library's fall delayed progress, dimmed the light of inquiry, and left humanity to rediscover truths that were once within reach. Let's step back and reflect. The Library of Alexandria was more than a collection of scrolls. It was a dream of what humanity could achieve when we pool our knowledge. Its destruction wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. Knowledge is fragile, easily lost to fire, war, or neglect. The scrolls that burned held answers to questions we're still asking, stories we're still longing to hear. But the story doesn't end in ashes. Could some of those scrolls have survived, hidden away in forgotten corners of the world? As we'll see in the next chapter, there are whispers, tantalizing, elusive, that the library's treasures might not be entirely lost. Are you ready to chase those whispers and uncover what might still be out there? Picture yourself in a dusty desert cave, the air cool and heavy with silence, your torch flickering over ancient clay jars. Inside one, you find a fragile scroll, its papyrus brittle but intact, the ink still whispering secrets from a lost age. Could this be it? A remnant of the Library of Alexandria, a survivor of the flames that consumed the greatest collection of knowledge the world has ever known. The library's fall left a void in history, but what if not everything was lost? What if some of its treasures escaped, hidden in monasteries, buried in sands, or guarded in secret archives? This is the story of the tantalizing theories, the fleeting clues, and the enduring hope that the library's scrolls might still be out there. Let's chase these whispers and uncover the mysteries that refuse to die. The Library of Alexandria fell, whether by fire, war, or neglect. Its shelves were emptied, its halls silenced. But here's the question that keeps historians awake at night. Could some of its scrolls have survived? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. The ancient world was a web of trade routes, pilgrimages, and wandering scholars. Knowledge traveled, and the library's collection wasn't confined to a single building. Copies of its scrolls were sent to other libraries, like Pergamon or Antioch. Scholars carried texts in their minds and bags, spreading ideas across empires. Even as Alexandria burned, its knowledge might have slipped through the cracks, finding refuge in the most unlikely places. Let's explore these possibilities, each one a thread in the tapestry of hope. Imagine a monk in a remote Syrian monastery, sometime in the 4th century after Christ. He's hunched over a table, copying a Greek text onto parchment by candlelight. The scroll he's working from is old, its edges frayed, but it bears the mark of Alexandria, a mathematical treatise perhaps, or a lost play by Euripides. When the library faced its first fires under Julius Caesar in 48 before Christ, some scholars likely fled, taking scrolls with them. Monasteries in Syria, Mesopotamia, and even distant Persia were havens for learning, places where Christian, Jewish, and pagan scholars preserved texts through the chaos of Rome's decline. The Nestorian monks, for example, were known for their libraries, filled with Greek and Syriac manuscripts. Could some of these have come from Alexandria? It's a tantalizing thought, scrolls smuggled out of a burning city, finding new homes in the desert's quiet. Now let's travel to the sands of Egypt itself. Fast forward to the 20th century, to the year 1945. In a cave near Nag Hammadi, a farmer stumbles upon a jar filled with ancient texts, codices, not scrolls, but written in Coptic and dating to the 4th century. These are the Gnostic Gospels, early Christian writings that challenge orthodox beliefs. Scholars believe some of these texts were translations of Greek originals, the kind that might have been housed in Alexandria. Imagine the connection. A scroll from the library, copied by a scribe, hidden by a monk fleeing persecution, buried in a cave to protect it from destruction. The Nag Hammadi find proves that texts could survive centuries of turmoil. Could other caves, still undiscovered, hold more of the library's treasures? Let's consider another possibility, one that takes us to the heart of the Islamic world. In the 7th century after Christ, as Arab armies swept through the Middle East, they didn't just conquer lands, they inherited knowledge. The Umayyad and Abbasid caliphs were voracious collectors of texts, translating Greek works into Arabic in their House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Many of these texts on astronomy, medicine, philosophy bear the fingerprints of Alexandria's scholars. Take Ptolemy's Almagest, a masterpiece of astronomy that survived through Arabic translations. Was it copied from a scroll saved from the library? Or consider the works of Aristotle, preserved by Arab scholars when Europe was mired in the Dark Ages. The library's knowledge didn't just vanish, it flowed eastward, carried by scribes and translators who saw its value. The irony is bitter. The city that burned the library's scrolls may have saved its ideas through conquest. But what about the scrolls themselves? Could they still exist, hidden in some forgotten archive? Picture a dusty attic in a Byzantine monastery, or a sealed vault beneath a medieval mosque. In the year 1873, a discovery in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula gave historians hope. At St. Catherine's Monastery, a scholar found the Codex Sinaiticus, one of the oldest complete Bibles, dating to the 4th century. Its Greek text, written in a script used in Alexandria, hints at a connection to the library's tradition of scholarship. Could other manuscripts tucked away in similar monasteries hold fragments of the library's lost collection? The idea isn't fantasy. Manuscripts have surfaced in stranger places, from the attics of Istanbul to the bazaars of Cairo. Here's another thread to follow: the Jewish scholars of Alexandria. The library was home to the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, completed in the 3rd century before Christ. Jewish communities across the Mediterranean preserved these texts, copying them with meticulous care. When Alexandria fell into chaos, some of these scrolls likely traveled with Jewish scholars to places like Jerusalem or Babylon. Imagine a rabbi in the Middle Ages unrolling a scroll that traces its lineage back to the library, its text a faint echo of Alexandria's glory. The Dead Sea Scrolls, found in 1947, show how texts could be hidden for centuries in desert caves. Could similar finds, yet undiscovered, hold Alexandrian treasures? But let's face the hard truth: the odds are slim. Papyrus is fragile, easily destroyed by time, moisture, or neglect. Even if scrolls survived the fires, they faced centuries of decay. The library's catalogue, the Pinakes, is gone, leaving us no map to track what was saved or lost. Yet the whispers persist. Every so often, a new find, a fragment of Sappho's poetry, a scrap of a mathematical proof, sparks hope. In the year 2001, archaeologists in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, unearthed thousands of papyrus fragments, some containing lost works by Sophocles and Menander. Were these from the library? We can't be sure, but the possibility lingers, like a shadow moving just out of sight. Let's pause and reflect on what these whispers mean. The Library of Alexandria was a dream of universal knowledge, and its loss was a tragedy. But the idea that some of its scrolls survived, hidden, copied, cherished, keeps that dream alive. It's a reminder that knowledge is resilient, that ideas can endure even the darkest times. The question now is what impact this loss, and these faint hopes of survival, had on the world. How did the library's fall shape the course of history? As we'll see in the next chapter, the void it left cast a long shadow, but its legacy also sparked a fire that still burns. Are you ready to explore that legacy and see how the library's ghost still haunts us? Imagine a world plunged into shadow, where the light of knowledge flickers, struggling to survive. The Library of Alexandria is gone, its scrolls burned, scattered, or buried in the sands of time. Yet its ghost lingers, haunting the centuries that followed. The loss of this beacon wasn't just a tragedy for Alexandria, it was a wound felt across the world, a rupture in humanity's quest to understand itself. But here's the question that pulls us in. How did the library's destruction shape history? Did its fall plunge us into darkness, or did its embers spark new fires of discovery? This is the story of the library's enduring legacy, of how its dream, though broken, reshaped the world in ways both profound and unexpected. Let's walk through the ages and see how the library's shadow still stretches over us. Picture the world after the library's fall. In the 5th century after Christ, the Roman Empire is crumbling, its cities torn by war and upheaval. The library's destruction, whether by Caesar's fire, Aurelian's battles, or Theophilus's zeal, left a void. Knowledge that once flowed freely now stagnates. In Europe, the so-called Dark Ages begin, a time when monasteries become the last bastions of learning, their monks copying texts by candlelight. But many of the library's treasures are gone. Imagine the despair of a scholar in 6th century Gaul, searching for a lost treatise on astronomy, only to find fragments or nothing at all. The loss of the library slowed progress, forcing humanity to rediscover truths that were once within reach. Mathematical proofs, medical techniques, philosophical insights. Centuries of advancement were delayed, perhaps by as much as a millennium. But let's not oversimplify. The Dark Ages weren't as dark as we've been told, and the library's legacy didn't vanish entirely. Its ideas survived, carried like seeds on the wind. Remember those scholars who fled Alexandria, their minds filled with its knowledge. They scattered across the Mediterranean, planting ideas in new soil. In the East, the Byzantine Empire became a guardian of Greek texts. Monasteries in Constantinople preserved works by Euclid, Aristotle, and Ptolemy, copying them with painstaking care. Imagine a Byzantine scribe, his fingers cramped from hours of work, ensuring that a mathematical proof from Alexandria survives another generation. These texts, saved from the library's ashes, became a bridge between the ancient world and the future. Now let's travel to the Islamic world, where the library's spirit found a new home. In the 8th century after Christ, the Abbasid caliphs built the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, a center of learning that echoed Alexandria's dream. Scholars there translated Greek texts, many likely descended from the library, into Arabic. Works on astronomy, medicine, and philosophy were not just preserved but expanded. Picture a scholar in Baghdad, poring over a translation of Galen's medical texts, adding his own insights to treat diseases unknown in Alexandria's time. This was no mere preservation, it was a renaissance before the Renaissance. The irony is striking. The library's fall under Roman and Christian pressures didn't extinguish its light. It was the Islamic world that kept it burning, passing it back to Europe centuries later. Let's fast forward to the European Renaissance, beginning in the 14th century. The rediscovery of Greek texts, many saved through Arabic translations, sparked a revolution. Scholars like Petrarch and Erasmus devoured works that traced their lineage to Alexandria, texts on geometry, optics, even poetry. Imagine a Renaissance thinker holding a newly printed book of Euclid's Elements, marveling at its clarity, unaware that it survived because a scribe in Baghdad or Constantinople copied it from an Alexandrian original. The library's ghost was everywhere. Its mathematics shaped architecture, its astronomy guided explorers, its philosophy fueled debates that birthed modern science. The Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth, it was a resurrection of Alexandria's dream, proving that ideas once born are harder to kill than we think. But here's the paradox that twists the heart. The library's loss made its legacy even more powerful. The very absence of its scrolls turned them into a myth, a symbol of what humanity could achieve and what it could lose. In the centuries that followed, the library became a cautionary tale, a reminder of knowledge's fragility. By the 17th century, scientists like Galileo and Newton stood on the shoulders of Alexandrian giants like Eratosthenes and Archimedes, but they also mourned the gaps in their knowledge. Imagine Newton calculating gravity, wondering what lost Alexandrian texts might have accelerated his work. The library's destruction didn't just delay progress, it inspired a fierce determination to rebuild, to never let such a loss happen again. Let's bring this closer to home. The library's legacy isn't just in dusty manuscripts or ancient debates, it's in the way we value knowledge today. Universities, libraries, even the internet owe a debt to Alexandria's vision of gathering all human thought in one place. But the library's fall also left us with a warning. Knowledge is precious, but it's fragile. Wars, censorship, neglect, any of these can snuff out the light of understanding. Picture the burning of books in the 20th century, or the destruction of cultural heritage in modern wars. The library's story isn't just history, it's a mirror, showing us what's at stake if we fail to protect what we've learned. And yet there's hope in this legacy. The library's dream of a world where knowledge transcends borders, where ideas are shared freely, lives on. Every time a scientist builds on past discoveries, every time a poet writes a line that echoes an ancient verse, the library's spirit stirs. Its loss was a tragedy, but its resilience is a triumph. The ideas that survived, carried by scholars, monks, and translators, prove that knowledge can endure even the darkest times. But what does this mean for us now? How does the library's story challenge us to protect the knowledge we have and seek the truths we've yet to find? As we'll see in the final chapter, the library's tale isn't just about the past. It's about the eternal quest for truth and what it asks of us today. Picture yourself standing on the shores of Alexandria today, the Mediterranean waves crashing softly, the modern city sprawling where the ancient one once stood. The Library of Alexandria is long gone, its marble halls reduced to ruins, its scrolls lost to fire, war, or time. Yet as you look out over the water, you can almost feel it, the ghost of a dream that refused to die. The library wasn't just a building, it was a vision of what humanity could achieve when we dare to gather our collective wisdom. Its destruction was a tragedy, but its story is far from over. What does the library's fate teach us about the fragility of knowledge? And why does its mystery still call to us, urging us to keep searching for truth? This is the final chapter of our journey, a reflection on the library's enduring power and a call to carry its torch forward. If you're as captivated by this quest as we are, join us at The Unveiled Past by subscribing, because the past isn't just a story, it's a map to who we are and who we can become. Let's step back and take in the full sweep of the library's saga. It began with a bold dream under the Ptolemies, a vision to collect every idea, every story, every truth the world had to offer. It drew the greatest minds, Euclid, Eratosthenes, Hypatia, who pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be human. It amassed scrolls that held the secrets of empires, the songs of poets, the calculations of the stars. But it also faced the fires of fate, Caesar's blaze, Aurelian's wars, Theophilus's zeal, until it was no more. Its loss left a void, delaying progress, dimming the light of inquiry. Yet its legacy endured, carried by monks, scholars, and translators who kept its ideas alive through the darkest ages. The library's story is one of triumph and tragedy, of ambition and fragility, of a dream that burned bright and a wound that still aches. Now let's ask the question that lingers like a shadow. Why does the Library of Alexandria still matter? It's been over 2,000 years since its fall, yet its name evokes awe, curiosity, even grief. The answer lies in what it represented. The library was more than a collection of scrolls. It was a symbol of humanity's hunger to understand the universe. It was a place where differences, Greek, Egyptian, Persian, Jewish, melted away in the pursuit of truth. Imagine what it must have been like to walk its halls, to unroll a scroll and discover a new idea, to argue with a scholar from a distant land and realize you're part of something bigger. That dream, that unity in the face of division, is what makes the library eternal. It's a reminder that knowledge isn't just power, it's hope. But here's the bitter irony. The library's destruction shows us how easily that hope can be extinguished. Fire, war, neglect, these are the enemies of knowledge, and they haven't gone away. Think about the libraries burned in the 20th century, the archives destroyed in modern conflicts, the truth silenced by censorship or indifference. The library's fall wasn't a one-time event. It's a warning that echoes through time. Every time we lose a book, a story, a piece of history, we lose a part of ourselves. The library's ghost asks us, what are we doing to protect the knowledge we have? What are we doing to ensure that the next generation inherits a world richer in truth, not poorer? Let's bring this into the present. In the year 2001, Egypt opened the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a modern library built to honor the ancient one. Picture its sleek glass and stone, a nod to the past, but a beacon for the future. It's a hub for scholars, a place where digital archives preserve texts that could be lost to disaster. It's not just a building, it's a statement that the dream of Alexandria lives on. But the new library can't replace what was lost. The scrolls that burned, the ideas that vanished are gone forever. Or are they? The whispers of survival, scrolls hidden in caves, copied in monasteries, preserved in distant lands, remind us that the quest for truth is never truly over. Every discovery, from the Dead Sea Scrolls to the fragments at Oxyrhynchus, is a spark of hope, a chance to reclaim a piece of what was lost. Here's where the story turns to you. The library's dream wasn't just for the scholars of Alexandria, it's for all of us. Every time you read a book, question an idea, or share a story, you're carrying the library's torch. Imagine yourself as a guardian of knowledge, part of a chain that stretches back to those ancient scribes. What would you save if the flames came again? What truths would you fight for? The library's legacy isn't just in the scrolls that survived or the ideas that shaped history, it's in the choices we make today. In a world of information overload, where truth can be drowned out by noise, the library calls us to be discerning, to seek wisdom, to preserve what matters. Let's pause and reflect one last time. The Library of Alexandria was a paradox, a place of infinite ambition brought low by human folly, a beacon of light that cast a long shadow. Its story is a mirror, showing us the best and worst of what we can be. It teaches us that knowledge is fragile but resilient, that ideas can survive empires, wars, and time itself. It reminds us that the quest for truth is eternal, a journey that doesn't end with a single discovery or a single loss. The library's fall was a tragedy, but its dream is a challenge to build, to learn, to never stop asking questions. So as we leave Alexandria behind, let's carry its spirit with us. Let's keep searching for the truths that lie hidden, whether in ancient scrolls or in the mysteries of our own time. If this journey through the library's story has stirred your curiosity, don't let it end here. Subscribe to The Unveiled Past, and join us as we uncover more secrets, more stories, more truths buried in the sands of history. The past is calling. Will you answer? Together, we can keep the library's dream alive, one story at a time.